My foundation will be 25. So, it's time I look back a tiny bit and thought through, the incredible luck I had with parents. And
A tech CEO once gifted his wife a $60 million private jet for her birthday. But that's just the beginning. These billionaires have built a parallel world where normal rules don't apply. One extended an airport runway with his own money. Another travels with enough security to protect a world leader. The strangest part? Their flight patterns show they're not just avoiding traffic. They're avoiding something much more dangerous. What we discovered about how the richest people on Earth really travel will shock you. This isn't about luxury. It's about survival. Elon Musk. Elon Musk moves through the world in a way that feels almost unreal. His schedule in 2018 proved that. In that single year, his Gulfstream G650ER covered more than 150,000 miles, which is enough to circle Earth over 6 times. And it did not happen through a handful of long flights. Flight logs showed more than 250 trips in 12 months. He was bouncing from the Middle East to Europe, then to Asia, then to Latin America, and sometimes right back to California before the jet even cooled. Some flights were so short they surprised even frequent flyers. He once shifted the jet between 2 Los Angeles airports just so he could cut time off his ground commute. Then there was the moment when he flew almost 300 miles from Los Angeles to Oakland simply to appear at a gaming event. A Tesla spokesperson tried to soften the reaction by saying he conducted business during the trip, but the number still made people blink. All of this happened while Tesla was promoting sustainability, and that irony was not lost on anyone. During the same year his jet was carving lines across the sky, Musk told millions of listeners that fossil fuel use was an insane human experiment. It made headlines. People questioned the contradiction. When asked why he had not built an electric plane yet, he said it just was not necessary right now. His team jumped in too. They said something simple and practical. Elon runs multiple companies. He manages work in dozens of countries. Until humans can teleport, they said, there is no other option. In their view, the jet was not a luxury. It was a tool. It was as essential to him as a laptop. And the jet he uses is not ordinary. The Gulfstream G650ER costs more than $65 million and sits at the top of billionaire wish lists. It can fly close to 7,500 miles without stopping and cruises near the speed of sound. That lets Musk jump from California to Texas for a SpaceX launch, then head to Europe for investor talks, all without losing precious time on layovers. Inside, it seats up to 18 people and has room to sleep, which matters when someone might see 3 continents in 1 week. Musk upgraded to this model in 2016, and he has stretched its limits ever since. Trackers have shown his plane taking off almost every day at certain points. Sometimes it was for business. Other times it was for moments like attending his brother's wedding in Spain or flying to Ireland to visit the set of Game of Thrones with his kids. Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos started traveling in ways that barely seemed real even for billionaires, and the shift happened quietly as his world grew bigger and faster. At first, he relied on a single Gulfstream for his work flights, but soon the routine of business trips and cross-country jumps pushed him towards something even larger. That was when he took delivery of the Gulfstream G700, a plane that carries a price tag of about $75 million and can fly 7,500 nautical miles without stopping. It moves at a top speed close to Mach 0.925, so the world becomes much smaller for him. Inside, the plane feels more like a floating luxury home. There is a bedroom, there is a shower, and there is enough comfort to make a 10-hour trip feel like a quiet morning. All of this sits alongside his older jets. bringing the value of his private fleet close to $140 million. So whenever he wants to move from one house to another, whether it is Seattle, Miami, or Maui, he can simply step aboard and fly straight there without waiting in any line. Maui became one of his favorite places. He owns a massive estate there, and over time, he became a part-time resident. While most people save for years to afford a Hawaii vacation, Bezos slips into the sky and reaches Maui with no crowds and no delays. But observers noticed something else. In just a little over a month, his jet produced 264 tons of carbon dioxide during repeated trips to Hawaii. That was about 17 times more than an average American produces in a year. The jet was flying almost daily, and the pace drew attention from environmental groups until Bezos explained that he pays for carbon offsets for his personal travel. Even then, it showed how different life becomes when movement itself is unlimited. Yet the skies were only one part of his world. In 2023, he revealed Koru, a 417-foot super yacht that reportedly cost around $500 million to build. The yacht is breathtaking, with 3 tall masts, several decks, a pool, lounges, and endless open space. It even has a support vessel named Abeona that carries a helipad so helicopters can shuttle guests between yacht and shore. Bezos and his fiancée Lauren Sanchez began enjoying Koru immediately. In May 2023, they were seen near Mallorca. He proposed to her on that yacht the same month. Then in June 2025, Koru appeared off the coast of Croatia before their reported wedding, and helicopters lifted them from the support vessel toward Venice. It looked like a sea-based version of his private jets, ready to carry him anywhere with absolute privacy. And then there was space. In July 2021, he boarded his Blue Origin New Shepard rocket and flew to the edge of space for about 10 minutes. It was enough time to see the Earth curve below him and to claim a new sort of title, the first major CEO to travel into space for leisure. Later, he said, the only bad thing about that trip was that it ended too soon. For him, even the sky did not feel like a limit anymore. Bernard Arnault. Bernard Arnault moved through the world quite differently, even though he also sat near the peak of global wealth. As the head of LVMH, he traveled in a Bombardier Global 7500, a jet that costs around $73 million and can fly 7,700 nautical miles non-stop. It is one of the longest-range private jets ever built. The cabin feels like a penthouse, and it can be divided into 4 separate living spaces. There is a dining room, there is a stateroom, and there is a shower. Operating a jet like that usually costs around $2 to $3 million a year. Chartering it costs roughly $10,000 to $11,000 per hour. None of that bothered Arnault. What did bother him was that people online were tracking every flight. In 2022, Arnault realized that social media accounts were posting his jet's movements in real time. One account grew large enough to follow nearly all his trips, whether he was flying from Paris to New York or heading to a shoe factory in Italy. The attention pushed him to make a decision. He sold the jet. Soon after, observers noticed the plane was deregistered in France and had vanished from public logs. Arnault confirmed it. Now he rents private planes when he needs them, so no one can link any tail number to him. His son later explained that private aviation is still essential for their business because it keeps them a step ahead of competitors. And renting allows them to travel quickly without revealing where they are going. Even so, nothing about his habits is modest. The Global 7500 he once used was considered one of the finest jets ever built. Reports said he flew it at least once a month, often more. It came with a full-size galley, an ensuite bedroom, and enough cabin space to bring along top executives during long flights. When he gave it up, he did not switch to commercial first class. He simply shifted to chartered flights, still in the same tier of luxury, but now layered with a veil of secrecy. Renting a jet of that size regularly can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars each month. Yet for a man overseeing brands that sell $50,000 handbags and $1,500 champagne, the cost barely registers. Climate activists pointed out that the sale was likely driven by increased scrutiny over carbon emissions. That same year, his net worth hovered around $133 billion, a reminder that he could afford any jet he wanted at any moment. Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison knew early that the world didn't have to stay the way it was. If he wanted something, he built it. If he wanted more room, he bought an island. And in 2012, when he purchased 98% of Lanai for around $300 million, it felt like he rewrote what travel even meant for a billionaire. Instead of checking into hotels or booking exclusive villas, he could simply fly home to his own Hawaiian island. Lanai became his retreat, his playground, and sometimes his office. He had a Four Seasons ready for guests, an up-country ranch for quiet evenings, and whole stretches of untouched coast where no one bothered him. Friends could visit whenever they liked, and they all knew the island belonged to him. But there was still a problem. Lanai was beautiful, yet not easy for everyone to reach. So Ellison solved that too. First, he created Lanai Air, a luxury charter service with flights from Honolulu straight to his island. Then he expanded the local airport. In 2022, he paid out of pocket to extend the runway by 500 feet. This one change quietly transformed travel for him. Larger private jets could finally land non-stop from the mainland. His Gulfstream G650 could touch down without stopping for fuel. And the same was true for jets carrying visitors like Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey. It was as if he bent the island's infrastructure to fit his own needs, making sure no one in his circle ever had to wait or struggle on the way to paradise. Ellison's love for flying shows up everywhere in his life. He owns at least 2 Gulfstreams, including that G650, and people whisper that he even keeps retired military jets as toys. Public flight data shows his Gulfstream with the tail number N817GS heading to Lanai again and again. On one trip, the jet flew about 4,800 miles and burned 4,275 gallons of jet fuel. For most people, that number would sting. For Ellison, with a fortune of more than $100 billion, it's a footnote. He has long been a licensed pilot and often prefers to fly himself when using smaller planes or helicopters. And then there's the sea. Ellison once commissioned a yacht so massive it felt like a floating palace. Rising Sun stretched 454 feet, held 82 rooms, and even had a basketball court on deck. It cost around $200 million to build and was delivered in 2004. For years, Rising Sun traveled from Hawaii to Croatia and stopped at places like the Cannes Film Festival, where Ellison hosted parties no one forgot. It had jacuzzis, a wine cellar, a private cinema, and enough space for every luxury he could imagine. After a while, though, he sold it to David Geffen and built something smaller for himself. Musashi came in at about 288 feet, still enormous but more subtle. It had the elegance he liked without the spectacle. It fit who he was becoming. Life on Lanai eventually pulled him in completely. By 2020, after stepping back from day-to-day work at Oracle, Ellison moved to the island full-time. Days became slower and quieter, though he still hopped into his Gulfstream to reach board meetings in Texas or attend Formula One races in Europe. Friends visited often. Tom Cruise is known to drop in, flying his own Gulfstream 4 and landing without trouble thanks to that extended runway. On the island roads, you might find Ellison in an SUV with guests, riding out toward the ocean, or heading upcountry to watch the sky change color at dusk. Paparazzi rarely appear. They cannot move freely on an island he controls almost entirely. Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg lives differently. He doesn't dress like a billionaire. He doesn't chase luxury brands. Yet when he travels, everything around him is built for safety, privacy, and control. Meta pays for it, and the numbers show just how far they go to protect him. In 2022 alone, the company spent $2.3 million on his private jet flights. That was part of a much bigger $27.1 million security package that covered everything from flights to bodyguards to home protection. To the board, this isn't luxury, it's necessary. Zuckerberg usually charters top-tier jets from Gulfstream or Dassault. All of it is billed as other compensation. In just 2 months of 2022, his jet made 28 separate trips, creating a carbon footprint 17 times higher than the yearly average for one person. Over the full year, Meta paid that $2.3 million total for flights that released thousands of tons of CO2 into the air. And still, this follows a pattern. The average S&P 500 company spent around $41.3 million on CEO travel in 2022. But Meta's spending stands out because it keeps rising. Since 2019, travel costs for Meta's top executives have grown by 55%. Even during the pandemic, the company spent $1.6 million on Zuckerberg's private flights in 2021 and around $1.8 million in 2020. Why so much? The answer is security. Private planes let his team control who gets on board and where they land. There are no crowds, no phone cameras, no unpredictable moments in airport terminals. In the early days of Facebook, Zuckerberg flew commercial like anyone else. But fame changed things. Protests grew. Threats appeared. At some point, flying commercial became a risk the board could not justify. Now he often travels with a full security detail, and the cost climbs with every extra precaution. In 2018, the company disclosed spending more than $2.6 million on his private flights, again pointing to safety needs. Even with all of this, Zuckerberg's style feels quiet compared to other billionaires. He doesn't own a giant yacht or a personal jet that carries his name. Instead, the scale of his company-funded travel is what turns heads. Reports show that Meta spends more on his security and flying than Apple spends on Tim Cook, or Alphabet spends on Sundar Pichai. Part of the cost comes from how often he flies with family. He has been seen taking Meta-chartered planes to Hawaii, where he owns property on Kauai, and to Lake Tahoe for holidays. These trips blend work and personal time, but Meta pays for them because they fall under safeguarding their CEO. And despite the luxury surrounding him, Zuckerberg keeps his habits simple. People say he prefers planes with strong Wi-Fi so he can work during flights. He cares more about power outlets than champagne. He usually drinks diet soda. But make no mistake, the cabin around him is still high-end. Plush leather seats, tables wide enough for meetings, enough comfort for him to run Meta from 40,000 feet. Bill Gates. Bill Gates used to fly commercial and sit in coach on Microsoft trips, but that feels like another lifetime now. As the years rolled forward and his world kept expanding, his way of traveling changed with it. Today, he keeps a private fleet that could make a small airline jealous. He owns 2 Gulfstream G650 ERs and 2 Bombardier Challenger 350s, and together, these aircraft are worth around $194 million. They rarely stay still. In 2022, he took 392 private jet flights. That is more than 1 flight a day on average, which instantly pulled the spotlight toward him because he speaks loudly and often about climate change. It created attention that people love to point out, and he has never pretended it doesn't exist. Still, he has always been honest about his love for flying. He once called private jets his guilty pleasure, the one luxury he lets himself keep while giving most of his fortune away. His Gulfstream G650ERs carry 16 to 18 passengers and can fly more than 7,000 miles without stopping. His two jets even have tail numbers people recognize, like N887WM and N194WM. They move him between his homes near Seattle and in Southern California, and then onward to distant corners of the world where his foundation works. His Challenger 350s are smaller 10-seat jets, perfect for short regional visits or days when he needs to hop between multiple sites. And tucked into his collection is a Eurocopter helicopter and a seaplane he uses from his lakefront property. So he truly has an aircraft for every purpose, whether the trip is across continents or just across town. His travel habits drew new attention in early 2023 when a 17-year-old activist compiled emissions data for celebrity flyers. The tally showed that Gates's 2022 flights produced around 3,058 tons of carbon dioxide, which is similar to the yearly emissions of almost 200 average Americans. He wasn't the biggest name on the list, since a few pop stars and tech moguls pushed even higher numbers, but the total number of flights he took still shocked people. When a BBC interviewer pressed him about it in February 2023 and asked whether flying private weakened his climate advocacy, Gates didn't dodge. He said he offsets his family's carbon footprint by funding Climeworks and buying what he described as the gold standard of carbon removal. And he reminded the world that he has invested billions of dollars into climate innovation. In his view, the impact of those investments outweighs the emissions he produces. Not everyone accepts that explanation, but it shows how private jet travel has become a symbol of contradiction for billionaire philanthropists. Gates himself admitted it might seem hypocritical. At the same time, he pointed out that his work often takes him to places where commercial flights barely exist. He asked a question that lingered. Should he stay home instead of visiting rural clinics in Kenya to see malaria programs in action? His argument was simple. The value of what he learns on the ground is enormous, and travel makes that possible. Behind the debate, there is also the reality of how this man travels. His jets function like offices in the sky. He holds meetings mid-flight with foundation staff. He rests in a full-length bed between stops. One of his Gulfstreams reportedly carries a custom interior with wide sofas, a conference table, and high-end entertainment tech, though it is easy to imagine him reviewing data more often than watching movies. The jets allow him to shrink the world. He can wake in Seattle, land in Washington, D.C. for a morning meeting, fly to Ottawa for lunch with officials, and continue to rural Senegal before nightfall to check on a vaccine project. Commercial travel could never match that pace, and that speed matters when his time is divided across continents. Mukesh Ambani moves through the world with a very different rhythm, but the scale of his travel leaves a similar impression. In India, his lifestyle is legendary, and it stretches into the sky as easily as it spreads across land. One of the clearest examples came in 2007, when he gifted his wife, Nita Ambani, a private jet for her birthday. It wasn't a small, sleek jet tucked into a hangar. It was a custom Airbus 319, a full-sized airliner transformed into a floating five-star home. He spent about $60 million on it, including all the interior work. The plane carried everything a luxury hotel might offer. There was an office, several lounges, a sky bar, and bathrooms with spacious showers. The master suite held a king-sized bed and an elegant private bathroom. A separate entertainment cabin featured game consoles, music systems, satellite television, and wireless internet. Rich wood paneling and soft leather seating filled the jet, while the lighting shifted gently to keep the space warm and calm. It could carry many people, Yet the layout made it feel like a personal palace for a small group. At that time, no one in India owned anything like it, and when the Mumbai Mirror revealed the story, it immediately became a symbol of the Ambani family's reach. Airbus eventually confirmed the sale in quiet whispers, while Reliance offered no clear comment, keeping the mystery alive. Ambani travels with the same intensity that shapes the rest of his life. His home in Mumbai, the 27-story building known as Antilia, and valued at more than $1 billion, includes 3 helipads. These pads connect directly to his jets. This means he can leave his living room, step into a helicopter, and be in the air on a long-haul flight minutes later without touching city traffic. Antilia has 6 floors of car parking and a staff of 600 people, which paints a picture of how prepared he always is for movement. When he heads to the airport, a convoy of luxury cars and security escorts usually clears the path. Unless, of course, he chooses to skip the roads and use one of the helipads instead. Inside India, he often travels in long-range jets like the Bombardier Global Express or the Falcon 900EX. These aircraft can connect Mumbai to London or New York with no difficulty. Local media has spotted his jet tail numbers across continents. Sometimes it is for business. Sometimes it is for family trips. At least one report mentioned that he booked an entire luxury resort in the Indian Ocean and flew his extended family there on his private jet, highlighting how easily he scales his travel plans. For international trips, the Airbus A319 that he gifted to Nita is still one of the main choices. When she attends launches or events abroad, she has been known to arrive in that jet, stepping onto a welcome carpet as cameras flash. Their children grew up with the same level of access. Akash Ambani once took school friends on a weekend trip on the family jet, which immediately sparked headlines. Rumors have floated for years about a 100-meter yacht he might have ordered in the late 2000s for about $100 million. Details remain thin, but everyone agrees that his passion for high-end travel shows up everywhere else. His fleet includes bulletproof Rolls-Royces and Bentleys. His road movements almost always involve a large motorcade because he holds Z+ security status, the highest level available to a civilian in India. It means that he moves with an escort that resembles a head of state, whether he is going to a meeting or to the airport. One story captures the way he operates. During an IPL final, when his team, the Mumbai Indians, were playing, he reportedly flew from Mumbai to Ahmedabad on short notice to attend the match. He watched his team play, then flew back the same night. It was a quick 500-kilometer trip each way. Most people would have taken a short commercial flight or even driven, but for him, time was more valuable than the cost. The jet was ready, the crew was waiting, and he made the trip simply because he could, and because he wanted those few extra hours at home.